Hello, everybody. My story, VNP, very normal people. You are normal people, we are normal people. But as you have extraordinary stories or something to tell, something that nobody has, also people that we invite in our show, they have something. And today we have someone from US. Before we start the show, we talked a little bit, we chatted a bit, and he has been in many countries. But let's invite, welcome to our show.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I appreciate being on your show, Arthur.
So, can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in the United States. I'm from America. I grew up in Northern Illinois. It's a state here in the United States. Very cold in the wintertime, which is now why I live in Florida, because I don't want to live through winters ever again. I joined the Army right out of high school, went off, got my commission as an infantry officer. I did my first 5 years of my 23 as an infantry officer, and then I did my last 18 as an armored cavalry officer. Been deployed 3 times, as we were discussing. The first Gulf War, Desert Shield, Desert Storm in 1991. I was in Bosnia in 97, and then I was in Kosovo 99 to 2000. And then retired from the Army after 23 years. I was associate director of a food bank. I ran the day-to-day operation of a food bank, and it covered 52 counties in 3 states along the Gulf Coast of the United States. And it just so happened that it happened to be during the time of the BP oil spill in the Gulf. So we were very busy helping to feed people who couldn't go out and work. And then they offered me to come here to beautiful Daytona Beach, Florida, and work back for the Army. I'm not in the Army, but I work for the Army, recruiting for Army ROTC. So I'm helping to produce the next generation of leaders. And I retired from that job in October. I wrote a book 2 years ago. I've been out on the speaking circuit. And so when I retire, I want to dedicate my time to getting out and speaking more, and I want to write my second book.
So there is a lot between the lines that you talk. There are stories, there are emotions, there are experiences. I don't think we can cover all of them.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to talk about leaders, especially in the nowadays. I think leaders, it's very hard for the leaders to lead as well, but also for people to be led, because everybody thinks about themselves. So please tell us your point of view, what you write in your book about leaders.
Yeah, so my main message when I talk about leadership, both in my presentation that I give and in the book, is it's about servant leadership. So every one of these brand new lieutenants that we commission and going out there to be in the Army, I pull every one of them aside the day they get commissioned. And I say, look, today is all about you. Celebrate it. You're getting to do something that very few people get to do. You get to become an officer in the United States Army. But after we pin those bars on your shoulder tomorrow morning when you wake up, it will never be about you ever again. It's about the people you have the privilege to serve, and it is a privilege. It's about your organization. It's about the Army. It's about the country. And then if we have time, we might talk about you maybe. Because I believe that a leader's responsibility is to take care of the people in their organization, to empower them, train them, and empower them to be the best person they can be. And in turn, that means they're going to make the organization the best organization it can be. And it's not about you. It's about them and the organization.
Right. So nowadays we have leaders in the government, we have leaders at work, we have leaders everywhere, even in the families, right? Do you think the role of the leader has changed? Let's say, I don't want to go 100 years earlier, but let's say 30 years earlier or 20.
Yeah, so I think that the principles of leadership have not changed. I think how they're being applied has changed. I think right now we are not producing good leaders at every level and in every organization, including government and military. who don't understand what their responsibility is, and it is a responsibility. You know, you don't get to pick and choose what do you want to take credit for as the leader. You own everything in your organization. Things go good, you get credit for it. That's the way it works. Things go bad, you need to take responsibility for it, because that's the way it works. You are responsible for everything that does or does not happen in your organization. And we don't have leaders who are doing that right now. They're passing the buck when things go wrong, and they're taking all the credit when things go right. And it's horrible. What we are accepting as leadership today is horrific.
So, let's say that what will be the best way for a leader uh, to lead other people? Let's say to have some qualities or the way that he will use, he will try. What is something that will
Yeah.
make a leader his, let's say his place a little bit easier?
Yes, absolutely. So number one, a leader has to have integrity. You have to do what's right because it's the right thing to do. Not even when it's not in your best interest. It might be in the best interest of somebody who worked for you. It might be in the best interest of the organization, but it might not be in your best interest. But you still got to do what's right because it's the right thing to do. And if you ever get caught not doing what's right because it's the right thing to do, you might as well hang it up, because you'll never have the trust of the people ever again. And that's the second piece. You got to build trust between you and the people you lead. That's what allows the leader-led relationship to exist, is the trust. Now, people will still do, if you're a boss and not a leader, and there is a huge difference,
Right.
then they will still do what you tell them to do because they have to. You're the boss, but they won't put their heart and soul in it like they will if they trust you and you're their leader. And I always tell people it's very easy to build trust. There's a couple easy things you can do to start building that trust. Number one, I tell every leader that I help produce, every day go out and find one person in your organization and find out something new about them. Just one. Every day, find one new thing out about one person in your organization, and not about work, their personal life. Do they have a spouse? What's their spouse's name? Do they have kids? What's their names? Do they play sports? What sports do they play? What's your hobbies? Something new about that person. And there's a couple good ways to do that, because you don't want to talk to people in your office. That's horrible. You want to get out and talk to people where they are. And there's a couple ways to do that. And I always talk about leading by walking around. I believe that every minute that you can be, you need to be out of your office, walking around, talking to people. And one of the easiest ways to do that, I had a boss one time, a mentor of mine, who retired a 3-star general. And he told me one day, he said, Oak, never, ever turn down a chance to go get your own cup of coffee. He said, 2 things happen when you do that. First, people see you're human and you're no better than they are. You go get your cup of coffee just like they do. And second, if you're lucky, you got 2 or 3 different ways to get to the coffee pot and back to your office. And along the way, you stop and talk to people and ask them how they're doing and find out that one new thing about one person along the way. So I think integrity and trust are the 2 things you have to have as a leader. I don't care what organization you are. I don't care what level you're leading, what profession you are. You need to have integrity, and the people who you lead need to trust you.
Right. Now, what do you think has gone wrong with the leaders? What do you
So
think?
I think one of the things that's gone wrong is that we have stopped teaching people to develop personal relationships. And I blame these things
Right.
for a lot of it. People text each other rather than go talk to people. I had somebody the other day, I was on a meeting with a gentleman in Canada over Zoom, and he told me that one of his friends who owns a company, he made a rule on Friday. Friday is no email, no text Friday. So if you want to talk to somebody inside the office, you got to get up out of your seat and you got to go find them and talk to them face to face. And he said he did that because people weren't developing a personal relationship with each other. And the communication is so key to being a leader and to being successful, not just a leader, but certainly being a leader, because that is what leaders do. They communicate with people. If you can't stand up in front of people face to face and tell them what it is you want and the standard you want them to meet, then you can't be a leader. And I think we got to get back to teaching people that leadership is about people, period. It's not about flow charts. It's not about organizational charts. It's not about profit. Now, you got to make money. I got that. But leadership is about people. And if you can lead people, you can lead any organization.
Right. So I just wanted to add something in the sense that, not to add, but just to say that now people, they look there, let's say they are a fan of a singer or a famous actor, and they just follow him or her, or an influencer, and that is I think they have changed the role of a leader, let's say, with something else. You know what I mean? It's not, I'll say it, an influencer is just okay, an influencer. You just you see what he does and you like it, and that's all. It's just about liking. But when you have a leader, it's different.
Yeah, I agree. I always tell people, if you tell me a couple things, I can tell you where you're headed in your life. If you tell me who you hang around, you tell me who your hero is, and you tell me what your habits are, and I can tell you where you're going. And part of the problem is that we are turning people into heroes, leaders who are not. And the perfect example is the sports world. A soccer player or an American football player or a basketball player is not a hero. Come on. Exactly. They play a kid's sport and they get paid very well for it. Now, they're good at it, don't get me wrong, and it's entertainment, but that's exactly what it is. It's entertainment. And we got to stop making them into heroes. And certainly most of them are not leaders. And we got to get back to figuring out, understanding what a leader is and what a leader is responsible for.
Exactly. So, what else do you think that we need to know about leading?
Yeah, one of the biggest things, and I always tell people this: you got to get results. You can do everything else that good leaders do. All that's important. But if you don't get results, it doesn't matter. In the real world, results matter. Now, in fantasy land where everybody wins and everybody's got a trophy, okay, maybe not. But in the real world, the one that we all work in and the one we live in, results do matter. One of the things that just drives me nuts is when somebody will walk up, when I say that, and somebody walks up to me and says, well, Colonel McCulloch, I don't judge myself against other people. I only judge myself against myself. And I said, you absolutely should. You should judge yourself against yourself. Your goal should be every day I get a little bit better at whatever it is I do. But in the end, if you think that your boss, your leader, isn't judging you against other people who are doing the same job you are pretty naive. That's how we pick promotions. That's how we pick pay raises. Come on, that's real life. Is you are going to be judged against other people who do the same job you do. So don't tell me you don't judge yourself against other people. If you do, then you're not very successful. I can just tell you. So I believe, my father growing up, my father had this thing called the 75% rule. And he used to tell me, son, if you can't do something better than 75% of the people doing it, then you need to do one of two things. You either need to figure out how to get better at it, or you need to go find something else to do, because obviously it doesn't matter to you. And I lived my life by that rule, and I taught it to my kids, and I'm hoping that they and I will teach it to our grandkids as well.
That's a very good legacy, right?
Yes. And that's what it's all about. Yeah. Because I'm going to die, and who cares? Nobody really. I mean, I'll go away and okay. But if you are a good leader and you're producing the next generation of leaders, then they're going to carry on that legacy for a long, long time. And hopefully you've taught them that their job is to teach the next generation. And so your legacy then goes on with them, added to whatever they add. And I had a guy who worked for me, and I said he worked for me. He was probably a better leader than I was. Master Sergeant David Powell. He was one of my NCOs. And when we were at the University of South Alabama and we were running our own ROTC program, we were talking about the importance of what we were doing, producing the next generation of leaders, not only for the Army, but for the nation. And he said to me, he said, you know, great leadership handed down from generation to generation is what develops great nations. And I thought, what a powerful quote. I wish I could take credit for that, but I can't. That was Master Sergeant David Powell. And I said, what a powerful quote. And you know what's really powerful is you can take that word nations and you can substitute anything you want for it. Any organization, a hospital, a school, a business, a sports team, a food bank, the military, whatever you want, and it doesn't change the power of that quote, because every organization, no matter what profession, needs good leaders.
Okay. Now this is a little bit out of the leading, but also it has a little bit. So there is a war for Russia and Ukraine at the moment, you know that.
Yep.
So do you think, okay, we know Putin, okay, but the other guy, the Ukraine guy,
right,
the president, do you think that he is a good leader?
So
According to what you,
yeah.
yeah,
So I don't know that much about him. I know he's
as much as we
he
hear from the, from media and this kind of stuff, not
right. I think he certainly is charismatic. He has people who like him, and he is one of those figures that everybody I'm sure in Ukraine everybody knows him, and they probably fall on one side or the other. Either they love him or they don't. Kind of like President Trump here in America. People either loved him or they didn't, and there was no in between. And that's kind of
in this case. We say you will hate him or you will love him. So
yeah,
there's
absolutely.
nothing in between.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think that possibly, from what I can see, that's probably the way it is there in the Ukraine. Although, just like any time a country goes to war, people rally around their leader, Winston Churchill, who was another figure that people either loved or hated. But during World War II, when he was the prime minister during World War II, everybody rallied around him because he was charismatic and he was decisive. He made decisions, and so I think that possibly that's the same thing that's happening in the Ukraine.
Okay, so what it will be something like an advice that you want to leave us?
Say that again.
An advice that you want to leave with us?
Yeah, so I tell people all the time that you got to make a difference in people's lives. You're making a difference in people's lives every day. You got to make the conscious decision to make a positive difference in people's lives, because that's what again, it's about people. And if we're not here to help other people and build other people up and help them become the best people they can be, then why are we here? I believe that. So go out and make a conscious decision. In the Catholic Church, they're talking nowadays about what they call a holy moment. Go out and do something good for somebody, or make a good decision that helps other people, not you, somebody else.
Right.
And hopefully somebody else, their moment of making a difference that day is going to help you. And if we get back to doing that, being humans again, treating people like humans and trying to help people rather than tear them down and divide each other, then I think this world would be a better place.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mark. It was a pleasure to have you and an honor to have you in our show. And we hope to see you again in our show.
Absolutely. I'm happy to come back anytime, Arthur. I enjoyed it. I mean, a great show.